And we are back. Welcome to episode number 7 of Noel's podcast. I'm the host, Noel Tesfa. Peace, love, blessings to everyone that's tuning in, whoever you are, wherever you are. Keep showing that love, keep showing that support. I appreciate y'all. Trust me. I don't have too much of an introduction for today's episode because we do have a lot to cover. Going to be talking the NBA draft lottery, which took place yesterday afternoon. We finally know who has the picks from 1 to 14 in next month's upcoming NBA draft. So I'm going to give you guys my reactions and my thoughts on that. Then we're going to be talking Spurs Timberwolves in one of the best second round series I've seen in a long time. Definitely, like, by far the best second round series of this particular playoffs. So I'm going to be talking about that, game 3 and game 4 over the weekend. Then we're going to talk 76ers getting swept by the Knicks. I mean, wow. The Knicks, man. We'll get into it. So we'll talk Knicks 76ers. After that, we'll get into Pistons, Cavs. Not too much, though, because the games did happen on Saturday. So we'll talk Pistons, Cavs briefly and my thoughts on game 3. And then finally, we'll end the podcast with Lakers versus Thunder. There really isn't too much to say about that series because, well, if you're following along, you know why. So that will be the rundown for today's episode. But before we get into any of that, I do have a little rant that I want to give at the top of the show. My previous episode, I gave a rant on the discourse around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and how it was kind of infuriating me. And then on Friday, something else came up that just I couldn't, like, my brain couldn't even compute what was being said. So the rant I'll give at the top of the show is all about Kobe Bryant and was he ever the best basketball player in the world? So that will be my rant at the top of the episode. And then everything else, I laid it out. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. If you do like the episode, if you do want to stick around, please like, comment, subscribe. Remember, always the emphasis on subscription. Turn on your post notifications. Follow on all social media platforms. The podcast account, not my personal account. I don't care if you follow my personal account or not. But yeah, follow the podcast account on all social media platforms. And yeah, just join the community, be a part of the Noel's podcast community. And yeah, we're just going to keep growing. We're going to keep putting out the content. So please continue to show that love and support. Now let's get into today's episode. I got to take a deep breath before I do this because there's a man by the name of Nick Wright in the sports media landscape. If you're into sports media and sports talk shows and stuff, you know who Nick Wright is. White guy, long hair, big nose. By the way I describe him, you probably know who I'm talking about. If not, Nick Wright hosts his own TV show on FS1 every weekday. It's called First Things First. Him, Kevin Wildes, Chris Broussard talk. I actually enjoy that show. He has his own podcast, What's Right with Nick Wright. See, I'm shamelessly plugging him, and he just pissed me off. But nonetheless, so Nick Wright, who on the TV show has his podcast, I disagree with Nick Wright a lot, okay? He's notorious for being like the ultimate LeBron guy in the media. He said LeBron was the GOAT from like 2015. Like, and you guys know how I feel about LeBron. So, big LeBron guy, and a lot of his basketball takes, I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? However, I do think Nick Wright is good at his job. I like him on the TV show. I like him on the podcast, regardless of if I disagree with him or not. he's good at his job, and that's why I watch him. But on Friday, on an episode of his podcast, he said something that completely drove me nuts. Like I was eating breakfast and I almost choked on my eggs. That's what he said, that at no point in his career was Kobe Bryant ever the best basketball player in the world. And I said, what? Like, and then he broke it down. So he said from 1999, which is around the time where Kobe joined the conversation of best player in the world. He said from 1999 to 2003, Shaquille O'Neal was the best player in basketball. And that's fair. I agree with that. Shaq won 3 finals MVPs, 3 championships, an MVP at that time, just the most dominant force of the modern era. So I have no disagreement from me there. Then he said, from 2003 to 07, Tim Duncan was the best basketball player in the world. And he listed off Duncan's accomplishments: 3 championships, 2 finals MVPs, 2 MVPs. And you're hearing it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I agree. And Duncan is kind of like, he's historically underrated. A lot of people actually, like, in the media are kind of overrate him a little bit when they say he's better than Kobe, but that's an argument for another day. But I agreed with him. He said from 03 to 07, it was Duncan. Fine. Then he was like, from 07 all the way to 2018, LeBron James was the best basketball player in the world. And I'm like, dude. And this is not even no shade towards LeBron. LeBron was great. Obviously, 07 was the year that he had that crazy game, the playoff game against Detroit, where he had like scored 25 points in a row for his team, willed them to a victory, dragged that Cavaliers team, that trash Cavaliers team, to the finals. I get it. That's a fair thing. But there is no argument to be made that Duncan was the best player from 03 to 07, and then LeBron was the best player from 2007 to 2018, when from 08 to 2010, Kobe Bryant was easily and universally regarded as the best basketball player in the world. And when I heard Nick Wright's argument, I was like, bro, I wish I was on this podcast so I could just destroy this argument in like quick fashion. Because if you say Duncan was the best player from 03 to 07 and then list off his accomplishments, 3 chips, 2 finals MVPs, 2 MVPs, how can you not say Kobe Bryant was the best player from 08 to 2010? Kobe Bryant from 2008 to 2010. Here are his accolades. Went to 3 straight finals. So all 3 years he went to the NBA finals. Won back-to-back championships in 2009, 2010. Back-to-back finals MVPs in those years. The years he didn't win the championship, in 08, he won league MVP. And then he was first team all defense and first team all NBA all 3 of those years. Right? So you don't think that fits the resume of the best basketball player in the world? And on top of that, in both 2009 and 2010, Kobe beat the 2 teams that kicked LeBron out in the playoffs in both years. In 2009, he beat Orlando in the finals. Orlando had just beaten Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals of that year. And then in 2010, Kobe beat the Big 3 Celtics with KG, Allen, and Paul Pierce, and Rondo. I have to include Rondo in that. Kobe beat them in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. That same team knocked LeBron and the Cavs out in 2010 in the second round. So when you put all those things together, it's how in the world can you say LeBron was better than Kobe from 08 to 2010? LeBron won 0 championships, 0 finals MVPs, He did win back-to-back MVPs in 2009, 2010. I'll give him that. But how did those seasons end? I just said it. With Kobe holding the trophy and the Finals MVP trophy, beating the teams that LeBron couldn't. So you can't make the argument for Duncan by listing off his accolades from 03 to 07 and then not do the same thing for Kobe. And as great as LeBron was, he was not. I was young at the time, but I remember that, especially in 2010 after the 5th championship in Kobe's career, that was real. Michael Jordan talks were starting to happen. Like, that was the original GOAT debate, Kobe, Jordan. So, yeah, I can't let that slide. I can't let the Kobe disrespect slide. I mean, and then if you want to say, oh, and Nick is slick, because in the podcast he was like, oh, you can't say in 07 that Kobe was the best because he gave up a 3-1 lead against the Phoenix Suns in the first round of the playoffs. Okay, fine. You can't say in 06 he was the best because he was losing in the first round of the playoffs. 05 he wasn't the best, he was losing first round of the playoffs. And I'm like, okay, but are you going to mention 2008? No. Are you going to mention 2009? No. 2010? No. He smartly avoided the years where Kobe was actually definitively the best player in the world. So, Nick Wright, man, I can't let you get that one off. And on this podcast, this platform, if you are a Kobe fan, I promise you, no Kobe hate, no Kobe disrespect will ever be tolerated over here. All right, we rep for number 8, we rep for number 24, and that's that. And I'm acknowledging Kobe is top 2 favorite player of mine all time. But taking the bias out of the conversation, this was an objective argument. You just can't say Duncan was the best from 03 to 07 and then not say Kobe was the best from 2008 to 2010 because it's literally the same argument. But yeah, I know I said it was going to be a mini rant, but I'm sorry. Like, when it comes to Kobe, it just, I got to fend for my boy. But yeah, shout out to Kobe. Rest in peace. Don't worry. No disrespect tolerated over here. Now that we got that out the way, let's get into yesterday's NBA draft lottery. And I'm going to do like a winners and losers of last night, like teams. And the first team that we have to start with is, of course, the Washington Wizards, who finally get the number 1 pick. First time they get the number 1 pick in 16 years. They drafted John Wall back in 2010. It was fitting that John Wall was the one representing the Wizards. But yeah, Wizards get the number 1 pick. It's been an interesting few months for Washington Wizards fans and that organization. Of course, they made 2 big trades in the middle of the season, getting Trae Young and Anthony Davis. And I think most people were like, huh? It was like kind of like putting their chips all the way to the table. But for 2 guys who don't have the greatest reputation right now for different reasons, obviously Trae Young, small guard, doesn't play defense. People are just not a fan of how he contributes to winning basketball. I myself am a Trae Young fan. I think the numbers he's put up have been crazy. He led his team to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2021. So I'm a fan of Trae Young. Sometimes, he could be a little too ball dominant, but that is what it is. But yeah, they got Trae Young. They got Anthony Davis, who is just notorious for being injured all the time. Barely played last year. Obviously, AD was in the Luka Doncic trade, the craziest trade of all time in NBA history, just a year ago. So, and then the Mavericks traded him without even getting to see what he could be with Kyrie Irving. And then their number one pick, Cooper Flag. So it is what it is. Wizards get the number one pick. I think they're going to draft AJ DeBonsta with that number one pick. He just fits the mold of that team the best, in my opinion, of the guys who are at the top of the draft. You have Trae Young as the point guard for Washington. You have AD as the big. Now you can put DeBonsta at the 3 or the 4 as like an overall do everything type of wing, but mostly score, a guy that can get buckets, a guy who is going to play with a lot of energy. And this is a really good time for Washington Wizards fans because it's kind of like, oh, if the Trae and Anthony Davis thing doesn't work out, at least we have someone who can eventually be a franchise player. And who knows, he might become a franchise player way sooner than anticipated. So they're a big winner of last night, obviously getting the number one pick. You have to say Utah is also a winner. They got the number 2 pick. I know they wanted AJ. They were like, it almost lined up for them. They almost got it. And I thought they were, when they got into that top 4, I'm like, oh yeah, Utah is definitely getting the number 1 pick. Obviously, they've been, following AJ. He's been going to school in Utah from high school to BYU. So you're like, oh, it's lining up. But they get the number 2 pick, and that's perfectly fine because I think they're going to draft Darren Peterson with that number 2 pick and pair him in the backcourt with Keontae George. They have their backcourt of the future with George and Peterson. And then they made that Jaren Jackson trade midseason. So they'll pair them with Jaren Jackson, Lauri Markkanen. Walker Kessler is going to come back from injury. So it's looking bright for Utah. I don't know. I'm a fan of Peterson's game, and we found out why he was missing so much time during the college season, almost a creatine overdose, or he was just doing too much with the creatine. But I think he'll be a really good player. I'm a big fan of Keontae George's game. So George, Peterson in the backcourt, Utah is going to be good for a long time, which hasn't been said for a while. So they're a winner. And then the 2 teams who are also in the top 4, and then this draft, let me say, it's like a clear-cut top 4. Like the 4 guys in this draft, Peterson, DeBonsta, Cam Boozer, and Caleb Wilson. Those have been the solidified top 4 guys for basically the whole year. So whatever 4 teams were going to fall into that top 4, we're going to be happy with their pick, presumably, right? So Memphis gets the 3rd pick, and Chicago gets the 4th pick, who they jumped up a lot. And they should be real happy. The thing is, the biggest question is going to be, who's Memphis going to take at number 3? Because Cam Boozer had an amazing freshman year at Duke. For a lot of, some people had him as high as number 1 on some draft boards at certain times of the year. But he wasn't that great in the NCAA tournament. I was not very impressed with his games, me personally. And now there's a conversation, him, Caleb Wilson, who's going to go number 3? Who's going to go 3 to Memphis and who's going to go 4 to Chicago? And I personally think that Caleb Wilson is a better fit for Memphis than Boozer, just because Memphis just drafted Zach Edey with the 9th pick 2 years ago. And him and Boozer are, I don't want to say their games are redundant. Boozer's obviously more skilled than Edey, but it's 2 bigs who aren't the most mobile, who don't shoot the ball particularly well. I don't think their games are going to complement each other. Whereas Caleb Wilson is some people say he's like a baby Giannis. What he does in the open court, the athleticism, the defense. I think he would just be a better fit for Memphis. I think Memphis would actually love to get Darren Peterson if he fell to 3, because it's time for them to move off of Ja Morant. But if they decide to keep Ja, and pair him with Caleb Wilson and Edie, there's something there. Who knows? But whoever Memphis drafts at 3, Chicago is just going to take the other player at number 4. So all 4 teams in the top 4, I feel like, are winners for this draft. Another winner is obviously the Los Angeles Clippers, because there was a chance that they weren't going to get no pick in this draft, but they ended up getting the 5th pick because of a trade that they made with the Indiana Pacers, who we're about to talk about in the losers part of this segment. But they get the 5th pick from Indiana in a trade, and now they're in pole position to pick up one of those wings, a Keaton Vogler. I don't think they'll take a Darius Acuff or maybe a Braden Burries, one of those guards. Like, there's a bunch of guards who are bunched up between number 5 and number 10. I don't think they'll take any of those guards because they just traded for Darius Garland midway through the season. So I think they'll probably take Keaton Vogler out of Illinois because he's more of a, like, do everything type of, like, bigger guard, and he has like Tyrese Halliburton comparisons. So I think a Halliburton type player paired with Garland. I don't know what Kawhi is going to do this summer, but yeah, that could be something. But the fact that they even have the 5th pick makes them a winner. And that transitions me to the losers of yesterday's lottery. And we have to start with the Indiana Pacers. Pacers fans, I feel for you. Oh my goodness. When you combine everything, Game 7 of last year's NBA Finals, right there on the precipice of winning a championship, first in franchise history, and your best player, Tyrese Halliburton, tears his Achilles. On top, like, after he was having a crazy start to the game, by the way, hitting threes, looked like he was going to lead the team to a W. I still think OKC would have won, by the way, but regardless, he tears his Achilles, misses the whole year. You basically throw away this past season because of Halliburton's injury. You guys are one of the worst teams in the whole league. And you've been tanking almost the whole year, even though Pascal Siakam was playing really well this year. Andrew Nembhard had good stretches, but all that losing, and Pacers fans were okay with it. You know why? Because they said, we're going to get a high lottery pick. Halliburton's going to come back next year, and we're going to make another run to hopefully the NBA Finals and potentially a championship. That was the thought and the mindset of all Pacers fans this whole year. And that's how they coped with all the losing. And what happens right before the trade deadline? The Pacers make a trade for Ivica Zubac from LA. They send away Ben Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, and their first overall pick. Now, the pick was protected. It was protected from 5 to 8. So the only way the Pacers lose that pick is if it landed from 5 to 8. So they were confident they were going to be in the top 4 at least. And then, what's the deputy commissioner's name? Mark Tatum. Mark Tatum pulled out that envelope and he said, with the 5th pick, the Los Angeles Clippers, which means that the Pacers' first round pick goes to the Clippers. And just like that, Indiana basically trades a first round pick, high lottery pick, for Ivica Zubac. And Zubac is a really good big. He was injured a lot this past year, but the previous year he had a breakout year, and he's solid. But man, to lose a first round pick, obviously you don't know. Hindsight is 2020. But man, to lose a first round pick, all you needed to do was get in that top 4, and they just missed out on it. I feel for Pacers fans. At least Halliburton is coming back next year. But man, that would have been People were talking about Halliburton with the Bandstar Peterson and then Siakam and Zubac, and they were going to make a finals run. And just like that, pick is gone. So I feel for you Pacers fans. What can you do? I think the GM just came out with like a tweet apologizing. A little too late for that, buddy. But they have to be the biggest losers, the Pacers of last night. Other losers, I mean, Sacramento, Brooklyn, they got the 6th and 7th picks and just cursed franchises, both of them. I mean, for Sacramento, every year they plan to be bad, right? Every year, because they just don't have the talent to be good. Maybe they try to be good, they just suck. And the one year where they get a top 2 pick and they could draft Luka Doncic, they take Marvin Bagley. See, I have to have like a dramatic pause after you say that because that's one of like the biggest misses in draft history. So that's just in like the long line of incompetent Sacramento Kings decisions over the last 2 decades. But they get the 7th pick. Brooklyn gets the 6th pick. And I mean, both these teams, they combined for 42 wins. Sacramento had 20, Brooklyn had 22, or vice versa. I don't know. They sucked, basically. They combined for 42 wins, which is the same amount as the LA Clippers had. The Clippers had 42 wins by themselves. The Kings and the Nets combined for 42 wins, and the Clippers still have a higher pick than both of them. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about the luck and just I don't know, just someone somewhere does not want to see Sacramento and Brooklyn do well ever. I feel for the fans. I was a Nets fan from like 2020 to 2023, obviously with KD. They should have won that 21 NBA championship. I will die on that hill, but they didn't, and now they are where they are. Tough luck. So those are the biggest winners and losers of last night's or yesterday's NBA draft lottery. I'm going to do a lot more draft stuff as we get closer to the NBA draft. So be on the lookout for that. But that's what I have from yesterday. Now let's get into the games over the weekend. Like I said, the first series we have to talk about, San Antonio, Minnesota. By far the best series of these playoffs so far because it's 2-2, right? And after the Game 2 blowout, the Spurs blew out the Timberwolves. Game 3 and Game 4 in Minnesota was absolute cinema. We'll start with Game 3, all right? The Spurs take the W in that one, 115-108. And that game was all about Victor Wembanyama and him just having a signature playoff moment. So he finished with 39 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 blocks. Stat line is cool, but the way he started this game and the way he ended this game was he's the only player in the league that could do that stuff. The way he started, the Spurs got out to like an 11-1 lead in the first 4 minutes of Game 3, and it was basically all Wembanyama on offense and on defense. On offense, he was doing that thing where he like catches lobs basically without jumping and dunks the ball. He had a few possessions like that. He was taking Gobert off the dribble, finishing through contact, just making tough shots. And he had like 9 of their first 11 points. So that's what he did on offense. On defense, the Timberwolves had 1 point in the first 4 minutes, and it was because Wemby was either blocking the shots or altering them when they came into the paint. It was a sight to see. And like I said, he's the only player that can have that much of an impact on both ends. And he displayed that. And then the way he closed out the game, the Timberwolves cut the lead to like 2. And it was looking very tight with about 3.5 minutes left. So the first 4 minutes of this game and the last 4 minutes, it was a Wemby takeover because the Spurs come out of a timeout. Wembanyama has it was like a jab step, turnaround jumper, fade away over Gobert. And he said it after, like in the post game. He was like, yeah, I got to give credit to Hakeem for that one, for learning that one. So he had that. Then very next possession, flares off a off ball screen, gets a 28-foot three. And that basically seals the game for San Antonio. So, and then he hit like 2 free throws, 2 big clutch free throws in the last minute. So that game, and then he did a bunch of stuff in between, but the way he started game 3 and the way he ended and the numbers he finished with, signature Wembanyama performance in game 3, and he helped the Spurs take a 2-1 lead. Game 4 was a completely different story. Obviously, if you don't know, Wembanyama in the second quarter of that game, elbows Naz Reid. Yeah, it was Naz Reid. Like a very deliberate elbow. Hits him in the face, gets a flagrant 2, and gets ejected in the second quarter. So finishes with 4 points, doesn't play the rest of the game. So now for Minnesota, it's like you have to win this game. You're down 2-1. You're at home. Wembanyama's out. You have to win this game. And Anthony Edwards. That is what I have to say about last night's game. All right. So Ant, who finished with 36 points and 16 points in that fourth quarter. And what I'll say is I have never been more impressed when watching Anthony Edwards play basketball than I was yesterday. He's had higher scoring games. He's had more important games because he's played in a conference finals, obviously. But this game 4 specifically, with all things considered, what he did and the shots he was making, especially in that fourth quarter, that's a statement game where it's like, okay, I can be the best player on a championship team. And we throw that around a lot in terms of like us, like in terms of like the NBA media. Oh, this guy can be the best player on a championship team. This guy can be a best player on a championship team. There are only like a handful of players who could actually be that. And last night, I feel cemented Anthony Edwards into that conversation because in that fourth quarter, he basically said, I am not letting my team lose. Right? They were essentially double teaming him. Either they were playing single coverage with Stephon Castle, who is one of the best perimeter defenders already in the NBA. Ant was getting wherever he wanted. I'm talking about pull-up mid-range jump shots, turnaround fadeaway mid-range jump shots, pull-up three-pointers, threes off the screen. Like, he was doing everything, tough shots. When they sent the double at him, he attacked it, didn't hesitate. And it was just tough shots all around, timely buckets. He hit the 3 to put the Timberwolves up by 1, their first lead of the second half, or their first lead of the fourth quarter. And it was just an all-around amazing game for Anthony Edwards. This series, and now it's 2-2. The Timberwolves win the game 114-109. And now we go back to San Antonio for game 5 and just all I'm going to say is grab your popcorn because the last, hopefully, 3 games of this series is going to be amazing. The way the two best players, Wemby for San Antonio and for Minnesota, the way those two guys have played in this series, especially the last 2 games. Signature moments for both of them, and I'm ready. And I'll say this about the Spurs. Even though they lost last night's game, and obviously Wembanyama was ejected, I am so highly, highly impressed with the Spurs young core. That core obviously consisting of Steph Castle, second-year player, Dylan Harper, rookie, Carter Bryant, rookie, Devin Vassell's in his 6th year, but this is his first playoffs. All those guys, the poise that they played with when Wembanyama got injured or when he got ejected in that second quarter, we're up by 8 points in that third quarter, and methodically, whether it was Steph Castle getting to the rim, Dylan Harper getting to the rim, they're so physical but it's physical but under control. And to their credit, they helped their team get back in the game. They helped their team get a controlling lead. De'Aaron Fox was really good for the Spurs in moments. But Anthony Edwards happened, and now we have a 2-2 series. But I'm really impressed with the Spurs young core, those guards, especially Castle and Harper. This is going to be between OKC and the Spurs. This is basically going to be the next, I don't know, we'll see 5-10 years of battling. 10 might be a stretch, but these next 5 years hopefully is going to be just a battle and a rivalry between the Spurs and the Thunder. But the Minnesota Timberwolves are here too, and they have a superstar that is saying, nah, make sure to include me in these conversations. And we will, especially off of last night. So that's what I have to say about the Timberwolves Spurs series. Game 5 tomorrow night. And man, I'm ready. I don't know. Maybe Wembanyama will be suspended because of the elbow to the face. They shouldn't. NBA, don't suspend him. All right. He got ejected in the second quarter. That should count as a suspension. Do not suspend Wemby, please. All right. So that's what I have on the Spurs Timberwolves series. Make sure if you guys aren't locked into that, lock in Game 5 tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Now let's get into a series that's on the opposite side of the spectrum from the Spurs Timberwolves series. And that was between the Knicks, the New York Knicks, and the Philadelphia 76ers. New York sweeps the Sixers 4-0. And oh my goodness. I feel like I'm having deja vu because I said the same thing after the Knicks eliminated the Hawks. The difference between this is this was a sweep. The similarity is that it was another beatdown. I mean, what happens to the Knicks in closeout games? Last closeout game, they put up 140 on the Hawks. Yesterday, they win 144 to 114, 144 points, franchise record for a New York Knicks playoff game. And before I get into the actual game, I'm just going to give you a few stats on the Knicks, all right? Over the last 7 games, so from Game 4 of the Atlanta Hawks series to yesterday's Game 4 between the 76ers, the New York Knicks offensive rating is 132.2. Now, and some of you are probably like, so, is that good? I'll put it into this perspective. The 2017 Golden State Warriors, the 2016-2017 Golden State Warriors with Steph, KD, Klay Thompson, Draymond, Iguodala, the greatest team of my lifetime and potentially the greatest basketball team ever. They only lost one game in the 2017 playoffs, 16-1, all-time great team. Their offensive rating was 119 in those playoffs. So the Knicks have a 13-point higher offensive rating than the 2017 Golden State Warriors over the last 7 games. I don't even have to say more after that. What the hell? Their average margin of victory in those games, those last 7 games, they're winning by an average of 26 points. 26 points. They're basically winning every game by 25 plus. First game of this series, they won by 30. Last game of this series, they won by 30. They beat the Hawks in the closeout game by damn near 60. So this is like an all-time run that the Knicks are on right now. And we have to acknowledge it. As great as Oklahoma City is, as great as San Antonio is, and I'll even put Minnesota in that conversation. But specifically OKC, who I think is going to win the championship. And I did not think any team from the Eastern Conference could even compete with the Thunder. But then if the Knicks continue to look like this all the way through and then make the finals for the first time in 26 years, if they play the Thunder or the Spurs or the Timberwolves, they can absolutely compete if they play like this with anybody. The way Brunson is playing, I mean, he's averaging like damn near 30 in these playoffs, and he's not even playing in the fourth quarter. Karl Anthony Towns, I criticized his decision making earlier on, like maybe like the first or second episode, because I didn't like how his playmaking was during the regular season. The way he is dishing out the ball in these playoffs over the last 7 games, he's averaging 8 assists. That is like amazing for Karl Anthony Towns. They're running the offense through him from the top of the key, and he's just finding cutters coming off of handoffs. And this has just been an overall great playoffs for him, for OG. OG Anunoby didn't even play in the last 2 games, and the Knicks still stomped the Sixers in both of the games in Philadelphia without OG, but OG's having a great playoffs. Mikal Bridges is doing all right. He's not no crazy numbers. He's just been consistent, steady force. Deuce McBride off the bench, he went nuts in game 4 yesterday. 7 threes, 8 threes, and it was like, bro, oh my goodness. But him, if they have that type of punch off the bench, especially if OG Anunoby comes back, the Knicks are super scary. For Philly, this is just a tough way to end the season. Like, they come back from 3-1 against Boston. They have all the momentum. I picked them to beat New York in 6 games because I thought Embiid is finally healthy. Maxi's playing great. Paul George has looked the best he's looked in 4 or 5 years. And they just got swept. And they got swept in like embarrassing fashion. Not just because they got beat down in both game 1 and game 4. Not because they just got swept. Because the Knicks fans basically took over Philadelphia. Is it still Wells Fargo Center? I don't know what the arena name is. But they basically took over in Philly after the Sixers put out a statement saying no Knicks fans can buy tickets to the games. You have to have a Philadelphia postal code in order to purchase tickets online for the games. None of that mattered. It did not matter at all. Knicks fans took over. There's like a bunch of videos of them going crazy in Philly, both game 3 and game 4. And this is just embarrassing for Philadelphia. All they have to look forward to is that they beat the Celtics, who they haven't beat in forever. The Celtics, by the way, I know Celtics fans and that whole organization is blowing, like they're pulling out their hair right now after what happened in this series, because they're like, yo, they just got swept. How the hell did they beat us? But that's the name of the game. Sixers beat the Celtics. So, Embiid finally won a game 7. I know you Sixers fans probably don't want to hear that right now, but there's at least something to look forward to. You have your backcourt of the future with Maxey and Edgecombe. Hopefully, Paul George can keep this play up going into next year. His trade value has gone up. But man, this is just a tough way to lose. But maybe it's not even Philly's fault. Maybe the Knicks are just way too good right now because they did the same thing to Atlanta in those last 3 games. And yeah, just what a turnaround for New York. I made a video talking about blaming Knicks fans for being down 2-1 against the Hawks and putting a battery in CJ McCollum's back. And I guess I put the battery in the Knicks back. I can't take credit for that. I got like 30 views. But still, Knicks advance to the conference finals, the first team to do that this postseason. And we'll see. We'll see who they play, Pistons or Cavs. Speaking of Pistons, Cavs, I didn't really get much into the game 4 between Philly and New York because it was just an absolute blowout. Like I said, the Knicks won 144-114. Wasn't much to talk about. Jalen Brunson was great. Miles McBride was great. Cat was great. The whole Knicks team was great. Sixers didn't play terribly. They just couldn't guard New York. And that was the main story of that game. So Pistons, Cavs, I'm not going to get too much into it. But Cavs win game 3, 116-109. They get their first win of the series. It's 2-1 with game 4 in Cleveland tonight. And I'm not going to say too much about game 3. All I'll say is Cleveland really needed that W. If it was 3-0, obviously the series would have been over. But it looked like they were dead in the water, especially in that fourth quarter, because the Pistons weren't playing great. And the Cavs actually had a lead with like 30 seconds left in the third quarter. They had like a 6-point lead. And somehow a Tobias Harris and a turnover late in that third quarter led to I think it was a Paul Reed putback layup. And all of a sudden, it was a 1-point game going into the fourth quarter. Pistons eventually take the lead. And I just did not think the Cavs had the fight to come back in this game. Harden looked awful again for the first 3 quarters. But let me give credit to James because in my last episode, I was a bit harsh. I was harsh, but I was being honest. All right. Obviously, James Harden is known for being a terrible playoff performer, but he's had moments in the playoffs where he showed up. And the fourth quarter of game 3, he showed up because when the game was getting close and it was getting tight and Detroit got a lead in that fourth quarter, it was James Harden who one possession off the dribble. Who was guarding him? Regardless, one possession off the dribble, tween, patent James Harden move, floater. Next possession, step back 3, could have been an N1, knocks it down. And he was the one that gave the Cavs momentum and a lead, a comfortable lead, like 5-6 points in like the closing minutes of that fourth quarter. To close it out, he was great. He finished with 19 points, but 9 points in that fourth quarter. So basically half his points came in the fourth. And timely buckets, clutch buckets. So I got to give credit to James Harden. Donovan Mitchell, another 30-point game, coming off the 30-point game in game 2. So the Cavs survive. I still don't think. I just don't see the fight with them. They fought last night or in game 3, but I just do not see. They're just a bit soft to me, if I'm gonna be honest. They're a bit soft. Detroit is a real rugged team. The Pistons really could have won this game, but Cade was great. It's just the turnovers for Cade Cunningham. His Achilles heel these whole playoffs have been turnovers and some timely ones. He had one where he was about to get subbed out, but they didn't call the sub, and he was inbounding the ball, and he hit like the stanchion that's connected to the net, basically the top, the bottom of that. And it was just some bad turnovers, especially late in the game. He did hit a few shots. He had a crazy poster dunk, nice three in the last minute and a half, but it just wasn't enough. But Cade, besides the Pistons, like if the Pistons want to really, really compete, like with New York, with OKC, with San Antonio, with Minnesota, Cade has to cut down on the turnovers. And he has the ball a lot, and it's, turnovers come with that. But it's like some of them are awful. Some of them are like in transition where it could be an easy bucket for Detroit and it turns into a turnover and a basket for the other team. And it's like momentum shifting plays. So Cade has to cut down on the turnovers. Other than that, he's been one of arguably the best player in these whole playoffs of any team. So he's been great, but it's the turnovers, timely turnovers that he needs to cut down on in order for the Pistons to complete. I still think they're going to close out this series. They'll probably win tonight. We'll see. And then game 5, close it out in Detroit. But I've been wrong a lot during these playoffs. So do not take my word for it or don't. But that's how I feel about this series. And we'll see. Shout out to Cleveland, though. Shout out to James Harden. I got to give props and credit when it's due. I criticized him last episode. Now I have to give him his flowers. So shout out to James. Needs to do it 3 more times, though, in order for the Cavs to make it to the conference finals. So that's what I have on Cavs, Pistons. Last series I'm going to talk about, which I won't even talk about that much, Lakers, Thunder. This is about to be a sweep. I said when I predicted how this series was going to go, I said I'm going to give the Lakers one game out of respect for the greatness of LeBron James, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got swept. I should have just said they were getting swept because the talent mismatch and just the team, it's not even fair. And I feel bad for Lakers fans. I feel bad, even though they knocked out my team in the last round and a lot of their fans were talking shit, especially to me. I still feel bad for them because they have like no chance. And Lakers fans, I know there's a few times where the Lakers have a lead in the third quarter and OKC just goes on an insane run. But like there's never been a point in this series where I was like, oh, the Lakers actually could win this game. Not the series, they could win this game. Maybe game 2 when Shea got into foul trouble and the Lakers had a 5-point lead, 6-point lead in the third quarter. I was like, oh, they might have a chance. Nope. No chance that I don't think they're going to win a game. They're going to get swept. Last game is tonight. Hopefully the Lakers win just for content purposes and we can extend the series a little bit, but it's not happening. Like Shea has not been, an MVP and looking like the best player in the world, like nothing close to that in this series. Again, credit to the Lakers defense. They weren't double teaming him as much as they were in the first 2 games as they did in game 3. But Shea hasn't looked good. Jalen Williams hasn't played a game, and still it's a 3-0 series lead for the Thunder. They've won every game by 18 plus points. I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for Lakers fans. Tonight might be LeBron's last game in a Lakers uniform. We'll see what he does in the offseason. You know, it's always a spectacle with LeBron. It's always, oh, what's he gonna do? Keep the media guessing. But, you know, he's earned that right. So I'm not gonna say nothing on that. But tonight's probably gonna be the last game of this series, might be LeBron's last game in a Lakers uniform. And it's gonna be another beatdown, another blowout. I think the Lakers won by 25 points in the last game. I can't even remember the score, but yeah, it's over. It's over. Shout out to the Lakers though. They did make it to the second round without Luka Doncic playing in these playoffs. So, got to give them credit. For the Thunder, they have just been, besides New York, it's arguable between New York and OKC. I would still give it to OKC because they haven't lost a game yet, but Thunder just they look like a juggernaut. And with San Antonio and Minnesota just absolutely beating each other up in the other series, and OKC is probably going to be nice and rested for the conference finals. I just don't see whoever makes it out between the Spurs and the Timberwolves. I just don't see either of them beating this OKC squad with how, you know, how rested and how fresh they're going to be for the conference finals. So I have OKC going to the finals regardless of who they play in the conference finals. And then I picked them to win the championship. But I just hopefully the Knicks continue to play at this level so we get a really, really amazing final series between the Knicks and the Thunder. I know I picked Detroit to make it to the finals and they're still alive, like very much alive, but the way the Knicks are playing, I already explained it. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that is my thoughts on everything from the second round matchups to the draft lottery to the Kobe disrespect, which again, not going to be tolerated over here. So yeah, that is today's episode 7 in the books. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you made it this far, that's real love. I'm getting more and more comfortable with these episodes, with this podcast. And I promised you guys that it's going to get better and we're going to continue to get better. So continue to grow with me. And yeah, hopefully you guys have a nice, enjoyable week. And I'll see you guys either Thursday or Friday. We'll see. We'll see. Probably Friday. But yeah, love you guys. Appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.